everyone. So today we are going to talk about HR and how small companies with a size of 5 employees upwards can actually get the full experience of having a proper HR department. And for that, I'm going to welcome Zameer Nazarali from Simplify ER.
Hi, Zameer.
Zameer, welcome. Thank you for coming over. So Zameer, how did you get started? Tell us more about Simplify ER.
Yeah, sure. So my career started as a lawyer. So that was my path. I wanted to qualify as a solicitor.
Right.
As I came out of law college, it was very hard to get a training contract. And then I got an internship during that summer, and that took me into employment law HR, which I fell in love with. And so my career began as an HR consultant, and I went through that process. In the end, I did qualify as an employment lawyer. So I had a unique experience of being able to sort of interpret the law, but with the practical element of an HR consultant.
Fantastic. And this was starting on May 2013, and it's been...
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And why is it important for businesses to have actually that HR element, small businesses, 5 employees as a minimum, right? They think they can manage everything. So walk me through that. Why do businesses as small as 5 employees and I think up to 150 you go to?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Talk me through that. Why is it so important?
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, as you grow, obviously, you want to be able to, manage the way your brand internally is growing as well. So you want to manage those values because those values seep through your team, onto your clients, onto your customers, and ultimately into the brand and what you become known as. So it's really important to keep a control of that from day one. And the way to do that is stay connected with your team from the beginning. So start as you mean to go on. Of course, things evolve and change, but if your sort of core values are right front and center, you'll achieve a better long-term goal. The second reason is that, HR policy and procedure and employment law is constantly changing. And whilst the changes aren't always groundbreaking, there's little nuances that can, if you know them and you know how to deal with it, it steers you clear of trouble. Right. And obviously the media will sensationalize tribunal claims, etc. But if you're in the know and in control of your strategies, you'll find that you get less conflict on the way out.
And what about moving out of, with Brexit, moving out of EU, has that had a knock-on impact on how we view our HR laws and policies?
Surprisingly not yet.
Right.
So the way that the EU law was incorporated it was entrenched within English legislation.
Right.
So it doesn't automatically lift as we came out of Brexit. Now, even till now, we're seeing the elements of those EU laws still playing a part. For example, there was a groundbreaking holiday case about how irregular hour employees have their holidays calculated. And that's very much based on EU law. So that hasn't in itself caused the problem. I guess where the problem has started is having a lack of migrant workers who were EU based and left the UK, and now getting other workers in, and the issues that come with that.
All right, got it. And now talk to me about where to simplify what kind of industries do you all feature in generally? I work with.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, our type of company can lend itself to a variety of industries. But our sort of favorites, if you like, have become healthcare.
Right.
We do a lot of work with dental practices, care homes, the pharmaceutical world, whether it's pharmacies or wholesalers, etc.
Right.
We've also ventured into the food and beverage world, so we deal with a lot of franchised restaurants and franchisor sort of networks as well.
Right.
And then we've got a sort of variety after that. We've got from hotels to insurance brokers to recruitment companies. So our sort of thing, it does lend itself across quite a wide spectrum, but we try and specialize into each industry because each industry has slight nuances.
And what are some of the benefits that a company would have in having Simplify ER rather than in-house HR kind of department?
Yeah, that's a great question because you would think it would be easier to just plop someone in, they're the HR person and off they go. I think if you're a large enough operation and you have an infrastructure that can support them, that does work. But when you're on the small to medium size, the issue is that often the founders or the directors don't have time to manage the HR person. So that can become a real disconnect because you've got someone who's very process driven, trying to implement, and if they don't always have the backing or they're not always on the same page, it creates a massive crack. So with an outsourced solution like ourselves, and one of our sort of unique traits is we really get to know the owners, the founders, whoever's sort of driving the company, and we try and adapt their people policy to where they're going on their journey. The other one is that, as you can imagine, it's a lot more cost effective. So instead of paying a salary and having someone who goes on holiday and
Right.
has sickness, etc., you've got a company that comes in. If one dedicated advisor is not there, another member of the team can step in. And we bring more than just the advice. We try and help with the HR admin as well. So we try and make that peace of mind solution for the company to just be able to shift all their problems onto us.
And what are the services you offer under the HR banner?
So yeah, our main service is our retainer.
Right.
So that's a sort of all-encompassing advice service. We're there every day. We have a dedicated consultant.
Right.
We work, as the client needs. So whether it's telephone, email, WhatsApp, we try and be quite creative and flexible there. We also do a document solution as part of that.
Right.
So we'll deal with updates, amendments, creation. And we provide a legal expenses cover. So what that means is that as long as our clients follow our advice,
Right.
our insurance will cover their legal expenses if something were to go wrong, because our sort of legal expenses cover really believe in the quality of the advice being given. So that's kind of our main service, if you like. We also do ad hoc projects, so we can drop in, as you can imagine, over the pandemic period. There's a lot of redundancies,
Yes.
a lot of mergers and acquisitions as well. So helping with those processes, making sure that everyone's on the right side of things because they're quite strict. And then, there's also the employee engagement side of things. So
Right.
going in, coaching managers, helping them connect better with their employees.
Okay, fantastic. And talk to me some of the common myths you've seen since 2013 and for your industry.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest one is employers feel they can't say anything to their employees. I'm going
Right.
to get taken to tribunal, I'm going to be taken for 50 grand and I'm going to close down tomorrow and that's the end of that.
Right.
So that's a common one. I constantly get clients who call in with trepidation. This person's not performing. How do I do it? Oh my God. What we try and do is bring a sense of calm. So HR is very process driven, but there is a common sense and reasonable ethos behind it, behind the employment law. I always tell clients that you've got to take ownership of the situation. Difficult conversations are there because you're the leader.
Exactly.
And the leader's got to lead. And at the end of the day, being transparent is so important. So we had a lot of clients saying, could we sort of shift this change in under the banner of this? And I'd always say to them, look, just be honest, tell them
Right.
what you want to achieve.
Exactly.
You get the buy-in, even if it's bad news. People don't leave with a bitter taste,
Yes.
and I think that's really important. So, yeah, myth number one is that I can't say anything.
Right.
Myth number two is that employment law is always on the employee's side. Now, I do agree there is a sort of slight bias towards employee rights, and rightly so, because there have been some really unscrupulous employers out there.
Right.
But again, if you follow the process and you get your building blocks in correctly,
Mhm.
the law can work for you, and
Right.
HR specifically can work for you. That's where things like employee engagement really come in. It's not just creating a culture where you provide breakfast and muffins,
Right. Okay.
but you provide a real connection. Your employees turn up to work, proud to be there, they get your vision, and also it helps your recruitment if you work that way because you attract the right people. So the vibes you put out, you get back in, right?
So it's building a culture for the company.
Absolutely, really, really important.
And what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now in your business with all the energy crisis and all the other stuff? And how are you tackling it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a very weird dichotomy. There is a massive increase for demand for HR services, and yet there is less and less disposable income out there for businesses.
Correct. Yeah.
And also, I think we saw that during the pandemic. If I split it into 2 years, year one, there was a massive, we need this, we need help, we need to understand what our rights are. And year two, people were extremely cautious because they didn't know where things were going. And we're sort of seeing that again, where we're going into an economic downturn and companies aren't quite sure. But I think the overriding factor for us is getting our message out there and helping people understand how important it is right now to invest in your HR. Because that builds the future. So I think, as we saw in the pandemic, those who start investing in themselves and developing now, when things turn up, they will come out running.
Running. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And obviously, Outsource our HR at this point, right? Audience sitting right now listening into it, what are they thinking? Do we have a permanent member of Simplify ER in the company? How does that work, and how many hours are we looking at, and what's a typical setup you have your clients at this point?
Yeah, so with our retainer, which
Yeah.
is that's our sort of favorite champion product,
Sure.
if you like, we don't put a cap on things.
Right,
So
okay.
we go by size of company,
Okay.
and based on our experience on what a company of that size would typically experience.
Okay.
We always find that with clients, there's always a surge at the beginning because
Yes,
we're
yeah.
auditing, we're sort of challenging processes that are there, and we're replacing things generally. And then things sort of settle down. We don't sort of promise a 24/7 service, but we
Sure.
promise a supportive service. And
Right.
so that means that we aren't bound by specific hours and time limits.
Mhm.
We are there when you need us, and that's why we sort of introduce things like WhatsApp, where we
Right.
become a bit more accessible.
Okay.
And I think for us, the key is communication. We manage clients' expectations, but we also understand when something is important and needs to be dealt with right now.
Sure.
And a lot of the time, you find that a client just wants a little bit of reassurance. And so that's sort of our approach. It's keeping connected,
Right.
helping them understand that, yeah, don't worry, this can be handled in the right time frame. But when there is something to step up to, we make sure we're there front and center.
Excellent. So all we're saying right now is, yeah, you are going to be around. It may not be physically present, but you're always around to help whenever
Absolutely.
needed.
Absolutely.
And what are some of those specific roadblocks to watch out for?
Well, in terms of the HR side, so I
Yes.
think more and more now it's understanding the small changes that are taking place. So like I mentioned earlier, the way holiday pay is calculated, that
Right.
has been evolving over the last 3-4 years,
Mhm.
and there's been another groundbreaking case now. So understanding that the nature of the economy we have
Yes.
is the ground is shifting.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is, why does the calculation affect? It affects those areas or those industries that have a lot of casual workers, a lot
Right.
of zero-hour contractors, and irregular workers. So it could be care homes, dental practices, cafes, restaurants, etc., hotels as well. So it's understanding what is actually taking place, and this is very much, I believe, and this has not been confirmed by anyone, but it
Right.
seems like the pattern. It's very much lining up with IR35 and how the status of the self-employed versus the employed
Mhm.
is shifting within the UK, and we're having a more of a push towards people being actually employed or truly contractors. There's becoming a
Sure.
sort of line in the ground. So I think that is a big challenge people have to keep in mind where they've got those fluid industries.
Understood. And talk to me now, after COVID, the world has, the attitude of employees has changed. They prefer, they mandate like 2 days or 3 days working from home. And what are some of the things you have seen in the HR space when it comes to
Yeah,
that
absolutely. It's a huge debate, as you can imagine. You know,
Yes.
people have got used to working a certain way, and
Exactly.
some enjoyed it, some didn't. So, the challenges for each business is varying. My advice has always been to approach it very, very calmly and very transparently. So, number one, does that sort of system work for your business particularly?
Okay.
And sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, explain to your employees why it doesn't, and maybe you'll come up with a hybrid solution. I think keep an open mind.
Okay.
And don't sort of put yourself into a mindset where it has to be fully hybrid or not at all. There can be some leeway in between. I think secondly, understanding the personality set of your employee or your team.
Mhm.
Are they capable? Are they able to work in isolation?
Right.
For a number of reasons. It could be sort of, some people are very social and they get down if they don't have that social
Yes.
network. Others get easily distracted. Others find it harder to work away from a team or a supervisor. So it's understanding that employee and where their strengths and where their gaps are. And it doesn't mean that they can't work from home, but it means that you've got to then supplement and
Yes.
put sort of strategies in place. I think the other thing is, though, not to be too iron-fisted about it as well.
Mhm.
If you're going to have a work culture of hybrid working, you need to then have an open-minded approach.
Correct.
You need to understand it's not going to be exactly how you want it.
Yeah.
There will be bumps, there will be things you don't quite agree with or they don't quite agree with, but actually in the end, whatever's the best thing for the company, that should be at the forefront of everyone's mind.
Excellent. Okay. And what's your biggest failure in your business been, and what did you learn from that experience?
Sure, that's a fantastic question. So, when I started the business, I was very green, I have to admit. I had
Okay.
I'd never run a business before. So
Okay.
the first one, I actually chuckle at it now. When I left my last job, I was sort of managing a portfolio of 150 SMEs.
Sure.
And, I got on really well with most of my clients. So I thought everyone loved me, they'll come with me and it'll be great.
Mhm.
Obviously, it didn't quite work that way. So I think first one was don't believe in your own hype. But the main challenge, which I really have, it took me a couple of years to learn this, but it really has stood me in good stead now, is when I launched Simplify ER, I tried to blend in. I tried to be like the top 5 consultancies I could see out there.
Sure.
And say, look, we're the same, we can do the same. And I was finding that it was really hard to break through those sales conversations because they were like, well, you're the same,
Yeah.
but you're smaller or you're newer. Why wouldn't I go with the more experienced consultancy?
Sure.
I then realized that actually I've got to play to my strengths and play to my uniqueness. And also I learned that my uniqueness doesn't mean that I'm totally unique in the market, but it's what's unique to me and what can I bring to the table.
Yeah.
Since we changed that branding and that value proposition,
Right.
we've really broken through.
Okay.
And we're finding actually we're connecting with the clients we want to work with. So the other lesson was, you don't necessarily want to work with every business because
Correct.
maybe their mindset and your mindset doesn't quite click. So it's okay not to be a business for every business. It's okay to be there for a specific type. So that was a major challenge which took a couple of years and a lot of coaching.
Yeah.
But really helped me now because as we go forward, that's really, our value proposition is right in the core of what we do. Because, it's a very busy market space in the HR world. There's a loads of consultancies.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you stand out? You stay true to your values.
Fantastic. And what does Netflix mean to you?
Netflix. Fantastic, I love it. When I think of Netflix, I think of Suits. That's my favourite series.
Right, okay.
And I'm an aspiring Harvey Specter.
Fantastic.
For me, Netflix is just, it's one of two things. It can be a massive rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But I think I've now coached myself to make it a really quality getaway. So I love picking things that I enjoy and then giving myself some downtime, which can be quite distracting.
Excellent. Fantastic, Zameer. Good to have you today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Cheers.